Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and yes, that's right, we have another seasonal interview with yet another seasonal champion. This time around, it's going to be EU's turn, and we have EU's seasonal champion, Hipster Waldo. How are you doing, man?
Hey, thanks for the invite. Yeah, I'm doing great so far. Haven't almost already processed what happened last weekend, but yeah, doing great so far.
I am glad to hear that. Probably the first and foremost question is, why the name Hipster Waldo?
Why the name Hipster Waldo? So the Waldo is basically the abbreviation of my last name. So my friends usually call me Waldo, and the hipster I just put in front of it because I'm doing hipster things on a daily basis.
Can you give us examples of such things?
Like bringing those 3 decks to the tournament, or I don't know what I can tell you right now.
So the hipster is not that hipster after all.
Maybe we find out later in the interview.
Yeah, and if not, it's always good to have hipster there for the reference. Yeah, before we actually dive in deep into the gameplay and into the tournament experience, we would like to know, and probably the audience would like to know, who are you behind the camera or behind your LOR mask? Who are you behind the player mask?
Yeah, so I'm 24 years old, studying math and physics right now. And in my free time, I try various things. I play various instruments or try different kinds of sports, stuff like that. Just do things I enjoy.
What is the latest sport that you have tried or started playing?
I'm right now doing track for, I think it has been almost 3 years, with the goal to take part at the German championships.
And how are the preparations going so far?
Preparations so far are going very well, but I think I need 1 or 2 more years to really make the cut.
I mean, it's really nice because you have that goal set there and you know how much until you have. You basically track your progress, so that's very nice. Not only in real life, but also in card games. But speaking of card games, what is your background in terms of card games or games at all before you came to Legends of Runeterra?
I've only played Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a kid, so like at school with my friends. Other than that, not really that much card games.
But what else did you play? I think you are coming from the StarCraft world. Can you tell us a bit about that game, or did you play that competitively?
Yeah, I've been playing StarCraft for I think 6 or 7 years, starting when it got released in 2010. I reached Masters 2 years later. I think I was in the beginning, so I didn't quite know what's going on. I was 14 at this time and really need to see where my future is. So I just wanted to try things out, and I enjoyed StarCraft very much. I got into the competitive scene, played a few ESL cups, beat some pros, but other than that, I didn't make it any farther.
Sounds cool and all. Like, I was a kid, I wanted to find a dream, I just got into this game, I decided I'm good, I beat some pros, and then I retired, because why not?
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds really cool. And how did you find out about Legends of Runeterra? What was the spark that ignited it all?
So I've been playing League of Legends with my friends, and there is a German League community caster who made a promotion video about the beta of Runeterra, and I wanted to give it a try because I have tried Hearthstone but didn't like it very much. So I wanted to give Runeterra a try and immediately fell in love with it. So I played it since the release at the end of April. I think it was 28th or so, and reached Masters midst, or I think it was at the end of May.
You said you fell in love with the game. What actually made you fall in love with the game? What were the reasons behind it?
It was the interactivity you have. So for every action you do, your opponent can react, and for every action your opponent does, you can react with a play of your own. That's what's something I really enjoy, and what other card games don't really have, or other card games which I tried didn't have.
Yeah, I totally get it, because sometimes in my interviews when I talk to people, I talk about games like Hearthstone, for example, and I say they are the best single player games in these guys. Like, you're doing your stuff, someone is doing your stuff,
Yeah.
things happen.
It really is a single player. You just playing solitaire, your opponent is playing solitaire, you can't really interact, I feel like.
Yeah, I think people say that Legends of Runeterra is a mash between everything that's good. They took a bit from here, a bit from there, they mashed it up, they mixed it, and then here, look, it's a card game. Play it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Speaking about cards, about card games, do you have any favorite card in the game at this point? It can be a spell, I don't know, a champion, a follower, really anything, even a landmark now.
I think my favorite card is probably the Grizzle Ranger, only because of his really funny German translation. I don't know, can you speak a bit of German?
No, I cannot, but maybe maybe you can translate for us.
Then the joke might not be as funny, but in German, the Grizzle Ranger is the vielgeprüfte Waldhüter, which is, I don't know, this translation is hilarious. And his partner, the
Badger Bear.
Yeah, the Badger Bear is der treue Dachsbär. And I don't know, I like these names. Perfect German translation.
If you like it, I'm sure that our German viewers are going to love it as well. And maybe they're going to come up with an explanation as well. I'm going to ask them about it. We've been talking about the cards that you like, but what about things that you dislike or despise or absolutely hate?
Listen. I just have to say, Lee Sin. I don't know. I've played so many games against Lee Sin, and it's like this. He has this barrier every round. You can't really do much about it. If you want to kill him with a concerted or anything, then the opponent happens to have deny every time, which makes it really annoying. And it's just the fact that he can 100 to 0 you in one turn. I don't know. I hate this card.
Were you disliking him before the changes that he suffered, the change after the changes that he suffered, or in general?
He wasn't appearing that much before the changes to 4 mana. It was, I guess.
Yes.
So yeah, the changes I think had quite an impact on that.
And I think there was a lot of debate regarding how they should change it, what they should do. Did you have such takes as well as towards how they could change it so it's not really oppressive but more balanced?
I haven't really thought about this yet, so I can't give any intel about that. I just hate this card. Never want to see it again.
Okay. I guess you just hate it with, I don't know, with passion. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will transmit him that. I hope he is not so bad at taking it. Anyways, we've been talking about cards you like, cards you dislike, but what about the card that represents you the most from the game so far? Do you have such a card that represents you the most?
I think this has to be Aurelian Soul, because he's like this sarcastic god that gets annoyed by every little shit, like Zoe, but still just tolerates it. So I feel like that myself most of the time. So many people annoy me, but I can't really do much about them, so I just tolerate it.
I'm not going to lie, when I saw Aurelian Soul for the first time revealed and everything, I was like, alright, this is a space dragon that is wise, that's awesome. And then he turns out to be a champion that is annoyed about everything pretty much.
Yeah.
And on good reason if few people are going to search his lore, because he was kinda imprisoned by people. But moving along, do you have any funny or any sad moments that you remember from the games? Maybe it was something in ladder, in ranked, maybe it was something in the gauntlets, or why not in labs?
So I think the parts I'm sad about the most are misplays I do during tournaments. So the one I made recently against Raxitos in the seasonal still stuck in my head. I don't know what happened exactly there. I played around cards that he didn't even have in his deck. So it was basically me playing versus my own mind, which chose to troll me. And these moments kind of get to me and make me really sad and upset because I know I could have won them, but in the end, I didn't. I didn't win.
Can you
So
explain a
definitely
bit?
sad.
Like, were you just playing on autopilot, like, alright, this list is this, so I know what cards are supposed to be here, or were you watching the cards that he could have in the deck?
So I was calculating many different lines, and I play my deep decks. It was, I think, a bit of autopilot. I play my deep lists with Withering Whale myself, so I assumed he had a whale, even though his deck list was right next to me, had no whale in it, but I still played around the whale. I don't know why I did that, but yeah, it's just happened to be like it.
Yeah, I mean, if he had a chance, you were playing around that one as well, so I guess that is 6-head or 7-head plays.
I don't know what it was.
Well, it was something that made you progress in the tournament and go towards winning the tournament, so I guess it wasn't that bad after all.
It wasn't that bad, yeah.
A mistake that gave you 10k is not really a mistake, as I would like to say. Moving forward, because we're talking about the tournament and slowly diving into it, what was your experience in the Swiss Open rounds before making the top 42? What decks did you bring there, and how did you feel in the Swiss rounds?
So the Swiss rounds were kind of funny. I haven't been playing for 2 months, I think, because I got really annoyed by the FIS TF meta and got kind of burned out. So I quit it at, I think it was at the beginning of March. And then when the seasonals came, I was Diamond 4 and had to push to Master. So I just chose a deck. I think it happened to be Thresh Nasus and made a 2-nighter climb to Masters, I think 169 LP, and qualified for seasonals. And then you just you need decks. You need to choose your decks. And I wanted to play Thresh Nasus because I've already played so many games with it, and needed 2 other decks. And these happened to be Lissandra Trundle because I thought it might be ban fodder. So everyone gonna tunnel on Lissandra Trundle, just ban it away. And my third deck, I wasn't quite sure. At first, I think I wanted to go with Diana Invokes, but since I haven't really played that much, I chose Deep. So that's kind of funny where I got that idea. I was watching the I think it was the C seasonal stream of Mr. Bear, and he played Lissandra Trundle, Thresh Nasus, and Deep. So I got inspired by that and choose Deep myself since I really love the archetype. And then yeah, that was kind of my lineup for the open rounds: Thresh Nasus, Trundle, Lissandra, and Deep. Which the first round went miserably. I got slapped by Broken Ball 0-2 and almost wanted to quit, but thanks to mental support of my scrim group, I played my games and finished it off with an 8-1 score.
I was smiling and laughing because I was watching Mr. Mr. Bear playing in Southeast Asia. I saw his lineup. I thought, yeah, it's interesting, but probably I'm going to face Lissandra, Trundle, Thresh Nasus, and something else. And in the first game, I'm seeing exactly the same lineup that Mr. Bear is playing in. I'm like, alright, I'm playing against Mr. Bear, more or less. But yeah, I also slapped my opponent too. Never mind though. But progressing forward, why did you switch your decks in coming into the top 42? Many players have many reasons. Which were your reasons for switching some of your decks?
So at first I wanted to stick with my lineup, bringing the exact same 3 decks. But what I noticed in the open rounds was that I really struggle against Nessus, Thresh, and Lee Sin lineups, since Deep is really bad against Lee Sin. So I didn't think it is quite a good idea to bring these 3 decks, even though I am quite comfortable with them. And I searched for decks that were good against Lissandra Trundle, Lee Sin, and Deep, since I thought that might be the decks that we see the most at the finals. And then I got the idea with the Sand Scouts lineup, and just needed to add a 3rd deck, which then happened to be an all-time favorite of mine, Soraka Tahm Kench.
Who was the person, or how did you get the idea of playing double Scouts?
So I tried this at a Nice Cactus earlier this year, first time where Lissandra Trundle made it into competitive scene, where I wanted to counter it and made a Sand Scout plus Shurima Overwhelm lineup, which happened to lose against the TF Fizz. This deck was just so oppressive. But I kind of forgot about this. So my scrim partner, one of my scrim partners said to me, "Yeah, what's with the Scout lineup? Just try Scout lineup." Since that was what he was playing for the open rounds. He played Scouts, Sand Scouts, and Soraka Tahm Kench, but didn't quite make it through. So yeah, that's the idea behind the lineup.
All right, and it quite performed pretty well. You made it into the open rounds. You didn't lose your mental after the first win. You qualified, and then you are reaching top 32. And you are looking at the list of players that are qualified. You see their names. Was there any opponent that you were scared to face at any point in top 32?
Not really, no. I think I've played against most of them and already won. So what I wanted for Top Cut is play a game against Gamebreaker, because I really wanted to know, yeah, who's the better player between us two. So I don't was afraid of anyone, and just took the tourney as it come.
Yeah. And was the tournament meta the one you expected, or did anything surprise you in the top 32?
It was exactly as I anticipated it. The first round I played against Past in Shame. He brought Deep, Trundle Lissandra, and his special Karma Kindred Gohat deck. So I just banned that away and had Nautilus and TLC. Second round was again Nautilus, TLC, and so on. It just happened to be every round TLC and Deep, or at least every time it was TLC.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the ban of Karma Kindred. Was that a ban because you didn't want to face something, let's say, weird, or was there a ban because you thought, this deck looks spicy, so he might have experience with the deck, so I don't want to suffer a loss because of it?
I knew he had experience with this. That's why I banned it. So that's what I got from Twitter, that he likes to play this deck. It's one of his favorites, so I don't want it to mess with that. I just banned it.
Yeah, that's a nice strategy, and also something to keep in mind if you want to be playing in a season, or I don't know, in general. Maybe just spread the decks that you play, or tell people, hey, I'm enjoying this, enjoying that, because if you are polarizing one single deck and say this deck is the best, I enjoy it, they might ban it. It's not wrong to advertise it, but maybe you want to think twice before you do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking about decks, let's actually dive into your decks, because they were actually quite interesting, and we're going to talk about first about the Scouts lineups. First, the Sand Scouts. What was the reason behind bringing this specific version of the Sand Scouts?
I think this version is the one that showed the most consistency for me with the Ancient Preparation, which just gives me my combo pieces if I don't have them. if I'm missing Illusion, missing an Azir, but have Ancient Preparation, I almost every time get my missing pieces. So the deck, as it is right now, I think has had the best consistency, and I especially tagged it against TLC with the Triple Rangers Resolve, and yeah, that's it.
There has been some discussion, I remember, around playing ancient preparations, not playing ancient preparations, besides the draw reason, because it gives you the card you want on turn 2 or later on. Is there any other reason for playing this?
It's just for the consistency and the combo. I play this deck like a combo deck. I don't aggro my opponent down. I play Ancient Preparations on 1, then the Emperor's Dais on 2. On 3, I play Azir, and then the action begins at turn 5 or turn 6 for me, where I then slap my Marshal or Citria and start rallying and scout attacking with Valor. So for my playstyle, Ancient Preparation is the best. I know there are lists running Fleet Feather Tracker, but the 1 health of it dies to Avalanche, it dies to so many things, so I didn't want to mess around with it.
And this is also another discussion in the community, at least from what I remember, if they should play this deck very aggressive or they should play this deck more combo-ish. You said you are playing it more combo-oriented, so what are the arguments in favor of playing it more combo-oriented?
Playing it more combo-oriented, I think, lets you express more skill. So instead of just playing Dunekeeper on 1, Brightsteel on 2, then followed up by Azir, you're just smashing your units on board and go face. That does not work out most of the time, since this deck really doesn't have that amount of reach you need as a burn deck. So I like to play it relatively similar to how I play Scouts. Take parses, even though they might seem bad for me. Most of the parses I take are really good for me, since I just waste opponent's mana. He can't develop anything, he doesn't play a spell, and I can just play another unit next round and start my attack there. So I definitely would say the combo version is better than the aggro version.
And I'm looking at your 6 mana slot, and usually there is a discussion, and probably depending on the meta, sometimes you see Citria in the 6 mana slot in a Demacia deck, sometimes you see Genevieve. Why did you decide to opt for Citria?
So I've never really heard about Citria in this deck though, so I think Genevieve is bad since it doesn't buff your Sand Soldiers. Citria buffs your Sand Soldiers since they spawn on attack and give them Fearsome. Genevieve only buffs your board, so I always go Citria in this deck.
Yeah, this seems like the reason why you should play Citria in general, I think, in Demacia. Do you think ordering is important in this deck? Because I think sometimes you want to play Citria first, Azir last, or depending on which buff do you want to go first, I think.
I just take it how I get the cards. If I get a mentor or a marshal, inspiring marshal, I play the marshal. If I happen to draw a Citria, I play the Citria. It doesn't make that big of a difference against John Lissandra. Against other matchups, it might have a bigger impact. I think against Lee Sin, you rather have the marshal for the extra buff on the soldiers. But yeah, I think I just take them as they come, as I draw them.
Yeah, that seems fun. And with that, from one scouts list to another scouts list, we're going to go to the Bilgewater Scouts, which is a list, from what I see, is more allegiance oriented. Some people would go for the allegiance version, some people would go for the more scouts version. Why did you decide to go for the allegiance version?
So for my lineup idea, the allegiance version is better because I want that life gain you get of the Bannerman against TLC, against all the board wipes, Withering Whale, Avalanche, Wild Feast, Ice Shard. Bannerman just happens to give your units the life back, so it really is a value card in this matchup. You don't want the Navori Scout or any other 4-drop. You just want to play Vanguard Bannerman into TLC.
And in your last deck, you were taking in triple Rangers Resolve. In this deck, we see something different. We see double Rangers Resolve and one Chain Vest. What's the reason behind? Are your units bulkier than usually in the other deck?
So the reason was that I played with triple Rangers Resolve first, but Lissandra has the TLC decks have this really strong landmark called Blighted Ravine, which just happens to damage your units at the start of your turn, and Rangers Resolve can't do anything about this. So I thought, how do I counter that if my opponent has an Avalanche on 3 and Ravine on 4? So how do I protect my Misfortune? And I thought about Chain West, giving it to my Misfortune. So first Avalanche puts her to 2, and the Ravine doesn't finish her off. So that's the main reason. Just protect my Misfortune or protect my Stony Suppressor against Blighted Ravine.
That makes total sense. And going on the same train of thought with one-offs, we're seeing you are playing triple Relentless Pursuit and one-off Golden Aegis. Why is it there? What purpose does it serve?
So I would take another Relentless Pursuit if you could take 4-offs, but that's not possible. So I wanted another rally spell since, oh no, the camera. Let's adjust that back.
Your camera doesn't want to see you play scouts. It's the disgusting. Anyways, going back to the question, we're talking about why playing an additional Relentless Pursuit type of effect.
Yeah, so this deck, I really need the Relentless Pursuit against TLC. So I chose to play 4 in Golden Aegis. Even though it costs 4 mana, it just is another rally I need to close out most of my games. Since the matchup is quite close. So yeah, you just need to get that rally later to finish the game off.
And now, out of curiosity, did you expect to see any Lee Sin deck? Because usually the argument for Golden Aegis is, okay, you cannot notify this, you need to deny this.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about this, actually. Yeah, you're right. So I did anticipate Lee Sin decks, but
you are taking
I haven't thought about it. Yeah, I didn't think about this. You're right. Yeah, it's good against Lee Sin since they can't notify it.
5-head, now you are going to know, and not just do it subconsciously, because I know somewhere deep inside you know about this. But we mentioned last time Genevieve's name. She didn't have a place in there, but now we see the split between double Genevieve and double Citria. Why is it happening here?
So Genevieve is amazing against TLC and Scouts. So since the most threatening thing about playing Citria on 6 is she doesn't buff your units right away, so opponent can react with an Avalanche or Whale or Ice Shot, and Genevieve just straight up buffs your unit. So that's what I happened to experience in the finals, where I dropped Genevieve on 6 at a low health board and just buffed my units back up, so an Avalanche couldn't kill off everything. So Genevieve is nuts against TLC in this deck.
If you had to choose one for ladder purposes, would you still... Actually, if you had to choose, would you still go for ladder with the 2-2 split, or would you go for one or the other?
I think for ladder, the 2-2 split is alright. Just gives you more flexibility. Yeah, just play 2 of Citria, 2 of Genevieve. I think that's fine.
Or a better question would be, would you modify this version in any meaningful way for ladder, or would you keep it as it is?
Yeah, for ladder, cut out the Chain West, cut out Golden Aegis, because that's only tech cards I did for TLC. And if there's not much TLC running around, you don't really need them. You could go with more late game or just put in a 3-drop like Laurent. Yeah, but these are the only changes I'd make for ladder.
And since we're here and we're looking at MF and Queen, I think in the new set people have been experimented with Queen Irelia or Misfortune Irelia. Did you get the chance to watch some of the decks in action, or do you have any thoughts on them?
Yeah, I got the chance to spectate or watch Alan's stream yesterday, and I think Arzia Irelia is nuts, as well as Irelia Misfortune. Those seem to be really cool decks. I want to try out.
And we're looking forward for you trying them out on ladder and probably specking one person or the other. But now we're going to move forward to your final deck, and that was the deck that you mentioned before, Tam Raka. Then again, what's the reason for bringing Tam Raka here?
So I needed a deck, since my first two decks were the Scouts decks, who are good against Deep, are good against TLC, are good against Lee Sin. So I need a third deck who is good against all three of these decks. And Tam Kench Soraka did this job. So I took the list, modified it, including a triple Bastion for the TLC matchup. And yeah, I think that's... And I put in a divergent path, since so Raka Tam Kench at college earlier. It was at the end of 2020, where I didn't draw my Star Spring, which happened to cost me 2 games. So I really wanted to get the Star Spring. That's why I put in the one-off divergent path.
Alright, and we see a lot of one-offs in fact here, because we also see one of Sunblast Vigor, we see one of Star Shaping, and one of Hired Gun. So let's take them in order. Why the one of Hired Gun first and foremost?
So the one of Hired Gun is against an early Zoe. Lee Sin plays Throw at You is a really good counter. If they play Zoe on 1, you play Hired Gun on 2, you get the Zoe. So that's the main purpose that Hired Gun hits in this deck. The Sunblast Vigor, I haven't played that card before. I didn't even know that existed. So it was the first time I tried that out this tournament. And it happened to be quite good. So I think, yeah, this now has a place in my TK Raka list. And the Star Shaping is, for 5 heal on your unit, it can progress your Star Spring win con, and it happened to create me or invoke me a win con against I think it was in the second round of the seasonal top card, where it invoked me a Celestial unit, which closed out the game then. Yeah, so I like a one-off of Star Shaping.
And judging by your lineup, and I'm seeing here Tam Raka, did this idea come from Timid?
No. Tam Raka, I've been playing Tam Raka myself, so I take all credit for that.
I was asking you because I have seen Timid playing in the Germany tournaments, and he brought something quite similar. Yeah, and
he's also a TK Soraka fan.
Everyone is a TK Soraka fan. Like, it's a deck that sometimes pops in, sometimes pops out of the meta. You do not want to play when you have that. You do not want to play against it when you know it's that inevitability. They just have a Star Spring and they just self-hurt themselves, heal themselves back, and you can't do anything. At some point you also need to block, so it's quite tricky to play against TK Raka.
Yeah, I think the biggest part about TK Raka is the surprise factor when it comes to the Star Spring win con. Most of the players just underestimate the amount of healing you can get done in one round. And yeah, this just catches people off guard and wins you most of your games.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. And we have been talking about all your lineup, all your feedbacks. Now the tournament is done and dusted. So I would ask you, if you could change your lineup now after you have seen how the tournament went, would you change anything, or would you change any cards, if not decks per se?
No, I would have brought exactly this deck again. It was so much fun playing the decks, and yeah, I would stick to my guns.
Nice. We have seen a lot of people that would stick with their guns in our interviews. But if you are not talking about your lineup, how did you feel about the tournament format, about the 9 rounds, or would you change anything about the format itself or the number of rounds?
I really appreciate the 9 rounds we played this seasonal. So I played the last 2 seasons as well, but again got my loss in the first round, and so there was no point on still playing to try to do anything, because you only qualify if you're 5-0. So I think the new system pretty much gives good players, or the better players, a better chance to qualify. And format they're using, Riot Lock. I think I've only played Riot Lock and Region Lock so far. I really enjoy Riot Lock. It gives you the option on bringing spicy decks like this Misfortune and Lucian Azure lineup with six Relentless Pursuits and the Golden Aegis. It's just, I think, creates more diversity. So I wouldn't change anything.
Would you try, you mentioned Region Lock, would you try a seasonal in which the format is Region Lock instead of Riot Lock?
I don't think I don't like Region Lock, since you just pick 3 decks that are good, and so the 3 decks I think for the Riot Lock, most played 3 decks would be Lee Sin, Trundle Lissandra, and I don't know, pick your favorite.
Probably Trash Nessus.
Master deck. Yeah, but that happens to be Shadow Isles as well, so you can't pick that one.
Yeah.
If you're region locking. But I think you just have the same lineups over and over again if you're doing a region lock. So I think Riot Lock definitely is better for the seasonal.
Yeah, and what would be, let's say, your advice towards someone that is fresh to the game, or maybe they have some experience, but they didn't quite try the seasonal tournaments or qualifying for them? If they would qualify for it, what would be, let's say, your top 3 advices for them?
Top 3 advices. 1, just go for it. Just advice number 2, have fun. Number 3, always positive mindset. That's all you need to qualify for Top Cut or win the seasonal. That's what I did.
And number 4, the bonus one, because you said the first one, if they have it, they have it.
Yeah.
The NA creed is strong with this one. But we're slowly getting ever closer to the end of the interview, and I would like to ask, because you mentioned you had some players in the prep group that helped you. If you want to shout someone out that helped you along the way, maybe a partner or anyone, now is the time to tell people about them.
Yeah, I shout out to my prep group. Thanks to Dark Soul, thanks to Kartenauge, thanks to Navatix, thanks to Timmy, and thanks to Abel. Without you, I think I wouldn't have been able to do it. So there was the weekend. The last week was so nice. I already told that in. I already did tell you in the Discord. Thank you very much. I hope we can prep together for the next seasonals and move even more players of our scrim group to Worlds.
That would be very nice. And now we are really at the end of the interview, and if you had one chance to close the interview and you could tell people only one thing, what would be that thing to the people that are watching now?
Don't play Lee Sin, please.
Sticking with your guns until the end. That was an awesome interview. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations again for the tournament, and we hope to see you around. Now that you're qualified, maybe you're going to play some spicy brews into the seasonals.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Let's see what I can bring up next for the upcoming seasonal.
Let's see. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching us, and keep in mind, we still have one more champion to interview. It's going to be the America's champion, so stay tuned. We're going to come in with that interview very shortly. Until then, see you around.